Good evening and welcome to 1010 News, your top 10 news in 10 minutes. I'm Andy Hong. Apparently today was Hug a Korean Day, in Facebook at least, and I complied by hugging myself. In a perfect world, I guess people want every day to be a hug each other. And you know what? That would just make things awkward. It was, however, Waitangi Day in New Zealand today, so go New Zealand. Yay. And in light of NBC anchor Brian Williams' apology for repeatedly telling a false story of his having been shot down in a helicopter over Iraq, we'll start tonight with the Middle East, where anti-terrorism sentiments and operations are at full swing, especially in the country of Jordan. Last week, we told you about a prospective prisoner swap between an Al-Qaeda suicide bomber and a downed Jordanian pilot. However, a video surfaced over the past week showing the pilot being burned alive, and it turned out that the pilot has been dead, all the while ISIS was proposing a prisoner swap. In response, King Abdullah II ordered the immediate execution of two high-profile terrorist prisoners that Jordan had been holding and went on a full air offensive against ISIS. The Jordanian state TV announced that this was just the beginning and that the airstrikes will not stop until ISIS is eliminated. At the same time, in the continuing American war against Al-Qaeda, a drone strike in Yemen has killed a senior cleric of the terrorist group. These types of drone strikes have been the hallmark of the American war against terror, which mostly began due to the 9/11 attacks. An event unfortunately still shrouded in considerable conspiracy and mystery, as once again demonstrated this week. According to CNN, a convicted Al-Qaeda terrorist in Guantanamo Bay, Zacarias Moussaoui, made allegations in sworn statements filed as part of a legal brief in an ongoing lawsuit brought by the families of 9/11 victims against the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for its alleged role in financing the attacks. As a result, the White House is debating whether or not to release the 28 classified pages from the 9/11 Commission report. The Saudi government requested that the pages be released in 2003, but the Bush administration flatly denied the request on grounds of jeopardizing anti-terrorism operations in Iraq. Hopefully, someday soon, we'll have transparency on this national tragedy. The war in Ukraine is still raging, and events escalated when the Ukrainian Prime Minister Arseniy Yatsenyuk stated that it is clear that the Russian military is on the ground and that Russian leaders must be blind to keep denying allegations of Russian involvement. Yatsenyuk even offered his glasses to President Putin while saying this, showing the Prime Minister's exasperation. The above said remarks were made in a meeting with Secretary of State John Kerry, who was visiting Ukraine, to offer a few words denouncing Russian involvement in the crisis and the possibility of lethal but defensive aid. French President François Hollande and German Chancellor Angela Merkel also met with Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko yesterday, but went to Moscow today to talk directly with Russian President Vladimir Putin, who, interestingly, in a 2008 Pentagon report, is hypothesized to have Asperger's syndrome, an autistic disorder that affects decision-making. Of course, the report is just a hypothesis, but it's certainly a possibility. Meanwhile, hundreds of civilians have been killed in the conflict, 224 just in the last 3 weeks of January. And just as we thought the AirAsia crash mystery was beginning to be solved, a catastrophic crash in Taiwan claimed the lives of 35 passengers, all but 15, with 8 missing as of Thursday. This time, however, the final seconds of the crash were filmed in a dash cam. TransAsia Airways flight GE235 went down minutes after takeoff in what seemed to be an engine flameout. Its wing dipped down to the left and clipped the taxi and the bridge that it was driving on before slamming into the river. This was not the first crash for TransAsia. In fact, it was the 4th crash for the airline with the same aircraft, the ATR-72 twin-engine turboprop passenger plane. Speaking of repetitive transportation accidents on the same carrier, there was another MetroNorth railway accident. A train traveling at full speed hit a Mercedes-Benz SUV that somehow found itself in the middle of a railway crossing. The impact was just so powerful that it drove a rail into the first car of the train, and the subsequent fire killed 5 passengers and the SUV driver, a mother of 3. The National Transportation Safety Board, or NTSB, has announced that it will conduct a thorough investigation, including an analysis of the train's black box recorders. In 1984, a train hit a truck at the same location and killed the driver of the truck. And there have been several sightings for faults in the Metro-North Railroad in 2013 and 2014, the major one being the deadly 2013 derailment in the Bronx that killed 4. The measles outbreak, meanwhile, continues to grow as there are now at least 150 cases spanning 14 states. There are 5 new cases yesterday in an Illinois daycare. Children and staff were advised to stay home for 3 weeks. Meanwhile, in California, the fulcrum of this latest crisis, legislators are leaning towards tightening vaccination exemptions. However, according to CBS, 19 other states still allow parents to refuse vaccinations for public beliefs, and 48 allow refusal for separate religious reasons. Dr. James Cherry of UCLA called the outbreak a wake-up call for the sorry state of vaccinations in America today. The last time someone died from measles in the U.S. was in 2003. This latest outbreak is a clear sign of regression and an incentive for me to say, for the love of your family, friends, and community, vaccinate before another eradicated disease comes roaring back. And in this technological state, of course, biological viruses aren't the only viruses we need to worry about. We also have to run checks for computer viruses and, more generally, hackers. Yesterday, hackers broke into the Anthem health insurance and got away with millions of social security numbers, putting the customers of 9 different branches of Anthem at risk. If you recall, a few months ago, Sony Pictures Entertainment was another victim of a major cyber attack, and yesterday, co-chairman Amy Pascal announced that she would be stepping down from her position. Although Pascal and Sony Pictures never mentioned the alleged North Korea-based hackings, it is likely that the humiliating emails leaked online from the hacking influenced Pascal's decision. And there's scandal in Argentina as it has been found that the late prosecutor Alberto Nisman had planned for the arrest of the president and the foreign minister of Argentina just prior to his mysterious shooting death. Nisman, who has been investigating the deadly 1994 bombing of a Buenos Aires Jewish center, was just hours away from testifying that President Cristina Fernandez de Kirchner and Foreign Minister Hector Timerman had covered up the role of Iran in the bombing when he was killed. The draft warrant for the president and the foreign minister were found in a trash can in Nisman's apartment. Even if, however, President Fernandez and Minister Timerman are indeed guilty, under Argentine law, the Congress must first remove the two political figures' immunity as members of the executive. And just as the justice system in Argentina is faced with quite the situation, so too is the system in America. 2 months ago, a grand jury didn't indict NYPD officer Daniel Pantaleo for the chokehold death of Eric Garner. Now, after months of protesting against police brutality, the New York Civil Liberties Union and other protesters went to court to demand transparency from Judge William Garnett in that he release the secret grand jury records. Of course, there's a reason why the records are kept secret. It's for the sake of the witnesses who testified under the knowledge of secrecy. At the same time, however, this poses several problems as it can easily cover up potential fraud. The decision was, in traditional fashion, put off to a later date. And we all know Harper Lee as the author of the classic 1960 novel To Kill a Mockingbird. 55 years later, it is official that a second book is being published titled Go Set a Watchman. Lee has always been known as an author who refused to live up to her novel's fame, so many worried that the publishing was not Lee's decision. Fortunately, HarperCollins announced that Lee is happy as hell about the upcoming novel. Finally, for this week's science news, just as New Horizons probe sent back new pictures of Pluto and its largest moon, Charon, NASA received the green light for a $30 million mission to Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. Although the surface temperature of Europa, which is covered with ice, is far below reasonable temperatures for liquid water, the moon still may have very active tectonic activity due to the powerful magnetic and gravitational field of Jupiter. As a result, the hot internal temperatures could allow for liquid water and possibly life under the thick coat of ice. Once the mission really goes underway in the mid-2020s, the probe will make several passes over the moon while orbiting Jupiter. If this isn't exciting, then I don't know what is. And that was 1010 News for this week. I'm Andy Hong. Make sure to like us on Facebook and YouTube, and good luck on your ACTs over the weekend. Who knows, I might even see you at the testing center. Hopefully, my throat will be better by next week. And we'll be back next week with more of your top 10 news in 10 minutes. Stay educated.